All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions. I'm off my script. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Monday morning tech chat show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Of course, as soon as I've started this up, there are garbage trucks doing multiple K-turn 17-point K-turns right outside my window. So if you hear beeping, it's not a fire alarm going off. It's a truck backing up and then moving forward and then backing up and then moving forward. And it's not distracting at all. Like, it's not going to throw me off of my podcasting game at all. Wow, that's loud. Okay, so yeah, we've welcome to the show. This is the still terribly named podcast series where we talk about news and technology and all the cool stuff that we like to play with. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, the SomeGadgetGuy of the SGGQA, and the QA, of course, stands for question and answer. We like to make these chats interactive. We like to spend a little time digging through the news, sorting out our feelings on it. It's why I like doing my show on a Monday, is because we've got the whole week to kind of sort out what happened in tech. We've got the weekend to sort of put a show together. We can come together, get your tech week started off right. And I'm already seeing a phenomenal chat digging in right now. This is JMX on the Periscopes, Abraham Artemis, Natakun, Matt, Tyler, Goran Petrovic, Evil Duder 1, LFA, my buddy LFA, Mbuk. It's Thexy Pat. Is that because you've got like a lisp, Pat? Freddie M162. I mean, we've got a packed live chat already. Sam's in the live chat. Matt Tyler, hashtag rename SGGQA 2020. Now I'm gonna keep it. I like that my podcast name is terrible, so that's gonna stay. All right, folks. So I'm feeling a lot better. Last week's show was sort of an impromptu pajama podcast because I had spent an entire day in a car with a toddler driving through the Southwest. I actually have show notes. We have articles to talk about. We've got news to talk about. I've got a table full of gadgets here that we should probably lightly touch on. So we're gonna jump. We're gonna try and make this move. I promise this every week. I fail every week at trying to keep this show a little bit more focused, a little less rambly. So keep those comments flying in the live chat as we go through articles, as we go through some of the news topics. Hit me up. I want to be able to reply and respond to what's going on here, but I am going to try and move a little quicker than what I normally do, and that's going to start us off on housekeeping. I don't know if there's an over-under on housekeeping. What is it? It's 9:04 a.m. right now. My goal is to be done by 9:15. 11 minutes. Can we get housekeeping done in 11 minutes? I don't think we can, but we're going to try. The first thing I want to touch on for housekeeping is the growing state of ill ease as it pertains to social media, how our data is being manipulated through algorithms. It's sorted for outrage traffic. It's all about trying to keep you on one site for as long as possible. And what I'd like to throw out there, and what I'd like to ask, especially those of you in the live chat right now, are any of you playing with alternative social media platforms? I recently started looking at Mastodon. It's something of a Twitter replacement. And I just got my invite to WT.social, which is trying to turn wiki formatting. I can actually throw this on the live screen, the stream right now. It's trying to turn Wikipedia style formatting and collaborative article creation into some kind of social service that you can meet up with other people and check stuff out. So this is an Android sub wiki. Again, we're borrowing terminology from like Reddit and subreddit and all this other stuff. So you're scrolling through this. It's very plain. It's very simple. People are posting articles to this wiki and then interacting with them in some way. Of course, it's super, super new, and that's always the tricky thing about a new social media, a new social networking site, is getting engagement up. But I was just curious if anyone out there had been playing with some of these other solutions, Facebook alternatives, Twitter alternatives, YouTube alternatives, If you've had any good experiences, if you've had any bad experiences, let me know throughout the show, and maybe this is something we can start incorporating into sort of our future distribution and how we talk about other gadgets and electronics. I like spreading the wealth around as opposed to trying to put everything on one platform. So if this works, that could be kind of cool. If Mastodon's doing it for you, that could be kind of cool. If you found a YouTube competitor, maybe that's something we can look at, spreading out different video platforms, podcasting platforms, and written articles across the internet. I remember when the internet used to be a bunch of different websites and you would go to different websites as opposed to everything being aggregated for you in one sort of timeline feed. Abraham Artemist, I have heard of Mastodon, but it never really caught up with people here. And that's also the thing too, is if there's a good, tight community, that to me is more important than just the biggest possible numbers. I think that's the success of Discord. Discord isn't this wide open platform where you're trying to game popularity metrics to make your follower count as big as possible. It's about building a tight little community of your friends, a circle of those people that you like to hang out with. And that's very successful. I mean, it's this great little service which replaces game in-chat audio for gaming and TeamSpeak and stuff like that. But it's also a wonderful social tool in a very social way, as opposed to Twitter just being who can yell the loudest and who has the biggest megaphone. So again, I'm hoping to find some of these alternatives where it's more about community building and engagement rather than just can I rack up the most points. Getting into articles over the last week, I'm going to click over to the SomeGadgetGuy website. I am finally working through a major block of big reviews. The biggie was the Pixel 4 XL. Finally finishing up that review. I of course had to make it a cranky rant, and I don't know what, a quarter of this review is also a condemnation of the current state of reviewing, where we just look at a specs list and then we look at SEO popularity algorithms and then we just trash any product which isn't exactly the most popular product. The tone on this is super cranky, so if you don't get enough of me being cranky, you should definitely check out this review. But ultimately, I very much enjoy the Pixel. There's something very special about this phone, and we'll have some more Pixel news in the second half of this podcast. To that same token, I also finished up my review on the Xperia 5. Of course, I finished up the review on the Xperia 5, and the Xperia 1 just got an Android 10 update. So I'm pretty sure an Android 10 update is coming soon for the Xperia 5. I sent a message to my Sony PR rep just asking, hey, I'm supposed to send this phone back, but can I hold on to it for just a bit? I am dying to see if Android 10 gestures are well implemented on such a skinny phone, which already has sort of this side sense to it. Where is my... So on the Xperia 5, you tap on the side and a little panel comes out with all of your extra, features and app shortcuts and stuff like that. It's a little like Samsung's Edge panels, but it's a tap gesture. So I'm very curious to see if they can differentiate easily between a swipe, a tap, and then the other just sort of how you move around the UI and you swipe on the screen. So I'm gonna hopefully hold on to that and see what we get. I don't know. We'll have to see. Goran Petrovic, oh geez, on the Xperia 5 review, you almost had me. Nice try. Goran Petrovic and I have had a lot of conversations about how disappointed he's been in Sony. Yeah, it's been good times. The thing is, a phone like the Pixel, a phone like the Xperia, I'm so tired of this as a trope. Like in a review, you'll have someone, well, I mean, this phone isn't for everybody. No one phone should be for everybody. But there's been something really fun about trying to weed out who is the audience for an Xperia 5, and this has been one of the more successful attempts from Sony. People complaining about the battery size, its battery performance is outpacing a lot of Samsung gear. And, a Galaxy S10e gets a good review for having a decently sized battery for a small phone, and the Xperia 5 outperforms it, so it's dangerous when we get too caught up in, well, I saw that number on a piece of paper, so obviously that means that another device is better. You know, this phone has a Snapdragon 855 and this one has an 855 plus, so that one's better. And you're like, that's not reviewing. that's basic reading comprehension that grade schoolers would be able to unravel. So those are the top 2 reviews on SomeGadgetGuy.com right now, but I want to go into the screen share because tomorrow, publicly, my LG G8X review is going live. LG G8X review, 2 screens are better than 1. And if you're currently on the Patreon, it is in preview. So you can watch that review right now on the Patreon. Also on the Patreon, yesterday, we did our State of the Patreon for December. I'm doing these every other month where we break down what's been going on with the channel, how has growth been going, and then also what are some of the goals coming up. And we talked a lot about 2020 strategies. So what we're going to be doing with videos, what we're going to be doing with paywall features, what we're going to be doing for the hearing health campaign that I teased last week during the podcast, #2020hearing. It's going to be a whole series of videos and articles and hopefully some really cool interviews talking about how we can protect our hearing for next year. Like 2020 vision, we want 2020 hearing. And and if you're on the Patreon, you can go back and rewatch that. That's a video you can go and catch. Patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. And lastly, we did get the long-awaited LG V50 review from our buddy Matt Tyler. I think Matt is in the live chat right now. Matt and I did a phone swap. He sent me his ROG2. I sent him my LG V50. There was much drama and gnashing of teeth in getting his ROG back to him. Some hilariously catastrophic failures from FedEx in getting his phone back, but he finally got it back. And he wrote up his thoughts using one of the top content creation phones in the Android ecosystem. And from his review, just a little piece of it reading off from the overall wrap-up, I absolutely loved my time with the V50 and its dual-screen case. It has one of the best displays on the market with some of the best cameras on any phone. The LG is not perfect. No phone is. The audio could be better in my opinion. Whether or not that's because the ROG spoils me, I don't know. So he's got a lot of thoughts. And again, he's coming from a gaming perspective. This is a guy who really does use his ROG to frag the noobs in first-person shooters. So all of the articles that we've talked about so far, SomeGadgetGuy.com, and then the previews and the audio deep dives, the camera deep dives, Patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. And that's housekeeping. Housekeeping in 10 minutes. I don't know that I've ever pulled that off before. I don't know that I've ever spoken faster on this podcast. Matt Tyler, it's 2019. All phones from the last few years will be good for many people and perform fine. It's all about how it looks to the average consumer, like parents, grandparents, and non-tech heads from my experience. And then Goran Petrovic replies, easy for you, Matt Tyler. You have the greatest phone from 2019. Oh, man. I felt like I was sad sending back that ROG2. I did reach out to ASUS. Hopefully, I can strike up a relationship with ASUS PR and get a couple loaners and stuff. I'm still super bummed. I got a reply, and they sent me to a new PR rep, and this is someone who's more in the mobile side, and they told me, like, well, the guy you were talking to back at CES, he's not with the company anymore. And you're like, man, that is so frustrating, because I've sent him, like, several messages that apparently just never went anywhere. Like, they never turned on any email forwarding. There was no reply, like auto reply. He just like vanished. And so I finally wrote back to him. I was like, hey, and I just want you to know, like, I was really planning on doing some coverage, especially content creation and vlogging for the Zenfone 6. And they're like, oh, okay, well, we'll keep you in mind. So I have no idea if that's going to be a change or if we're going to get more hands-on with ASUS. But I'm hoping, fingers crossed. For this week, we're also going to be covering Pixelbook Go. I'm going to have a video review out on that. Some accessory videos are coming out. I've got a whole slate I just made like weird face there. I've got a whole slate of audio kit. We'll cover, what's to come at the end of the podcast, just because there's a lot of hardware still coming out. But definitely be on the lookout for the G8X review coming out public tomorrow. I had a lot of fun putting together that review. So, Juan, let's swap laptops. My MacBook Pro for your Pixelbook Go /sarcasm. I don't know. I mean, if you want, I'd be down to swap that out. I don't know that, I don't know a MacBook's going to do much for me, but the Pixelbook was kind of interesting. I'm writing up a whole thing about how the Pixelbook has been sort of disrupting my expectations, but in a good way. Let's get this down out of the way here. LFA reviews audio kit. Yeah, I've got some earbuds coming in, some more IEMs. I've got some DACs to play with, especially a little portable DAC for the iPhone. And I've got another Bluetooth headset to play with too. So yeah, I'm way behind on my audio reviews. Whenever you're doing like a full phone review, like I've got where is it? The Xperia 5. It takes me so long to get through one of these. Like I don't feel like I can really call something a review until I've had a phone for almost a month, and 3 phones and a laptop all at the same time just jammed up everything. I'm trying to use the phone for a full day, get those battery specs, do updates, do performance testing, do benchmarking, chart all of that data, compare all of that information, write the script, try and shoot the video, edit it out. As you're shooting something, you're going to discover a few other little things that you want to put in the review. There were 2 clips in the G8X review where it's like, I just didn't have anywhere else to put this. So here's a B-roll clip and I just wrote text on top of it. I didn't even have the script in place to talk about this thing. Moving this fast, and even I'm late for all of these reviews, moving that fast is just crazy difficult to stay on top of everything. So unfortunately, what suffers is often the accessory stuff. It makes me sad because those are often the things I have the most fun talking about, even though they aren't the biggest traffic generators for my YouTube channel. All right, moving right along. We've got to get into some news. We didn't talk much news last week. There's been a ton of news. I'm going to try and abbreviate these stories. These first 4 articles all loosely kind of tie together as we're looking at the current state of tech politics. And it's not a great look. We've got some shenanigans happening, and you know me, if there's something going on with the FCC and our current administration's tech policy, I feel that's worth covering, because the FCC actually did part of their job, but then failed to do the most important part of their job. This is a story coming by way of Gizmodo, but a couple other outlets have picked it up too. Excuse me. Written up by Whitney Kimball, FCC finds wireless carriers wildly overstate coverage, but gives them more money anyway. From the article, on Wednesday, the Federal Communications Commission, the ghoulish specter of a disemboweled regulatory body, for a fleeting moment appeared before a House Oversight Committee as a shadow of its former self. It produced a report. The result of a year-long investigation, FCC field agents exposed mobile carriers' sham claims of providing coverage to underserved areas. The FCC then took that information and promptly vanished. I'm feeling like there's a witty and a snarky tone to this article. It's fun. It's a good read. So here's the actual information, though. Per the report, field agents drove through 12 states to conduct speed tests on Verizon, US Cellular, and T-Mobile networks, finding that the companies had clearly fudged their coverage maps to exaggerate their network's reach. They report that only 62.3% of the drive tests reached the minimum download speed shown. In addition, they write, staff was unable to obtain any 4G LTE signal for 38% of drive tests on US Cellular's network, 21.3% of drive tests on T-Mobile's network, and 16.2% of drive tests on Verizon's network, despite each provider reporting coverage in the area. But the FCC is still allocating billions of how monies flow into these carriers. And let us not forget that this is the same wireless industry that is now, alongside the traditional ISP market, this sort of telecom industry as a whole, is saying, well, they need more public funds. They need more tax dollars. The two main lobbyist groups for wired and wireless internet service providers are going to Congress hat in hand. We need all the profits and we need more tax dollars to improve this coverage that we're already lying about. So this is a sham. I mean, 16% of Verizon's coverage map appears to just be a lie, and they're still going to get more money out of this government to try and do what with, I don't know. So it's pretty rough. The frustrating aspect of this has been the FCC gutted net neutrality over the auspices of improving competition. Competition is not improved. They've gutted regulatory oversight over ISPs to help encourage more development. And not only has development not improved, we're also finding that what they claim to be able to deliver, they can't deliver. And it's all costing tax dollars enormously, while consumers still have to pay some of the highest rates for coverage in the first world. So this is not a good look. Immediately into that, Huawei. Huawei apparently doesn't appreciate the FCC ban on Huawei gear. So the Huawei is suing the FCC to try and get around that ban. Story by way of Ars Technica, written up by John Brodkin. Huawei has sued the Federal Communications Commission over the agency's order that bans Huawei equipment in certain government-funded telecom projects. Quote, Huawei asks the court to hold the FCC's order unlawful on the grounds that it fails to offer Huawei required due process protections in labeling Huawei as a national security threat. Huawei believes that the FCC also fails to substantiate its arbitrary findings with evidence or sound reasoning or analysis in violation of the U.S. Constitution, the Administrative Procedure Act, and other laws. And this is actually a quiet but important point that we've talked about on this podcast numerous times. We want to see some evidence. I'm not saying there aren't potentially some issues with how Huawei does business or with security issues, or, this stuff gets complicated when you talk about mega corporations and different governments that have different oversight over those mega corporations. But one of the things that I find consistently lacking in the U.S.'s policy here has been disclosing some of this evidence. If there is a security risk with individual products, gadgets, handsets, or with telecommunications equipment and infrastructure, the best thing you could do is disclose some of that evidence so that we know what it is, what the threat is, and we know what the protections are. And that goes for corporations along with private citizens. So hopefully what this will encourage is some disclosure, and in court we'll have to see some reply from the FCC as to what's happening here. I feel like this has been dragged out longer and more comically than what happened with ZTE. You remember ZTE got caught, trading with countries on lists that they shouldn't have been trading with, and then they doubled down and they didn't fulfill all of the penalties. They were supposed to do these fines, and a few people were supposed to serve jail time, and then that didn't happen, so ZTE got shut down. I don't feel like we've gone through the same process with Huawei, and I wonder if it's not because Huawei is just the much bigger player. So this is another story that's unfolding at the same time. We're about halfway through politics here, folks. At the same time that China is now kind of pulling a reverse Uno card on the whole what tech can you use from what company game, and China is going to ban all government departments from using U.S.-made technology. This is written up by Daniel Cooper over on Engadget. From the article, it was only a matter of time before China started offering trade bans to U.S. companies in return for the ban on Huawei's gear. The Financial Times is reporting that Beijing has ordered all government institutions and public bodies to get rid of their foreign, i.e. Western, computer gear. According to the report, China will spend between now and 2022 transitioning off American hardware and software in favor of local alternatives. So this is going to be a really ugly trade war, walking back and forth. And we kind of take for granted how many different countries and how many different companies are all intertwined in this fight. I don't know. You kind of remember like those Alien versus Predator movie posters, whoever wins, we all lose. I'm getting a little sense of that here. We've got egomaniacal leaders at the heads of these decision-making processes that are beholden to individual and specific interests that are fighting between themselves, and it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the people on the ground. This is going to be really frustrating to follow, to untangle, and to keep up with the news as we move through these various permutations of the U.S. Because, again, think about the U.S. banned Huawei, but then they offered up a bunch of licenses so that American businesses could still do business with Huawei, and then they extended the time frame for the ban, so they're still not really banned, but they are kind of banned, and now Qualcomm is going to be doing business with Huawei again, and the ARM Alliance is going to be able to share chip designs on the next generation of ARM processors. It's a mess. Because this is way more complicated than one dude sitting in a chair going, ban this company. And then you just push a button and you can perfectly sever all of those business relationships and all of those political relationships. And I feel like the same thing is kind of going to happen in reverse. It's probably easier for China to cut the cords on American hardware than it is for American institutions to cut the cables on Chinese hardware. But it's still going to be really messy, really ugly. And now we're also going to have to examine the IP ramifications. If the Chinese government cuts out American infrastructure or American products, will they still have access to that technology to copy it? So we're going to have to cover this more over the next year, because I feel like this showdown is going to get uglier, and it might require a change of political leadership before cooler heads are able to untangle all of the knots that have been tied up. From Sam, you can't blame the Chinese. I figured this was going to happen. Ruru 2, bah, America. Should I start buying Samsung stock? Goran Petrovic, Trump asked for this. I think both sides are acting irrationally. Jim, 72165, it would never have anything to do with the fact that Huawei had better sales than Apple. Definitely not. And Goran, no, I think Trump wanted to embarrass China National Party by attacking the successful company that attacking successfully the best China has. Sorry, reading is hard when you're doing it live. Yeah, I don't have the most confidence in our leadership right now to fully understand the nuance and ramification of technology and business concerns. So that's disappointing. One last political story. I actually teased that I wasn't going to talk about this during the State of the Patreon yesterday, but it's just, again, whenever we're in the political space and we hear politicians talking about technology, I always find it's interesting to see what their ideas for tech are. And so Bernie Sanders recently trotted out a part of his plan on communications accessibility. So this is coming by way of CNBC, written up by Jacob Pramuk. Bernie Sanders unveils plan to boost broadband access, break up internet and cable titans. From the article, Bernie Sanders unveiled a plan on Friday to expand broadband internet access as part of a push to boost the economy and reduce corporate power over Americans. In his sprawling high-speed internet for all proposal, the Vermont senator and Democratic presidential candidate calls to treat internet like a public utility. His campaign argues that the internet should not be a price gouging profit machine for companies such as Comcast, AT&T, and Verizon. Sanders' plan would create $150 billion in grants and aid for local and state governments to build publicly owned broadband networks as part of the Green New Deal infrastructure initiative. The plan would mark a massive increase over current funding for broadband development initiatives. So the reason why I want to point this out, it sounds a little bit ludicrous given the current state of American leadership and the sort of corporate power that corporations have over the political process. But what Bernie is detailing here is very similar to what went down in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Chattanooga reached out for a grant through the Department of Energy. They set up gigabit fiber to all of the people in Chattanooga, or at least a significant portion of the residential areas of Chattanooga. And now, you can get gigabit fiber to the home. The last mile is fiber. And I want to say it's something like $50 or $60 a month now. I think they've just added a 10 gigabit option if you need sort of a more business speed connection. And that 10 gigabit option still costs less than what I pay for 300 down, 20 megabit up. And they have 10 gigabit duplex, up and down speeds. Is it 10 or is it 5? I can't remember now. I know it's one of them. It's either one of the Dakotas has 10 gig. I can't remember. It might be 2 gig. Nah, I'm gonna have to look it up. I'm not doing a good job of explaining this. But why that was significant, Chattanooga went through the Department of Energy. DOE has a significant interest in better data connectivity because what they're looking to do is piggyback the management of the electrical grid in the United States to our data infrastructure. And you can't really do that when so much of this country is still on old copper lines, not in the real-time adjusting kind of way that they want to manage this. And the United States energy grid is crazy old and super vulnerable to outside attack. If you were to disrupt 5 major nodes on the American energy grid, you could probably shut down most of the East Coast for a couple weeks. Again, because it's old, it's antiquated, and the repair for it is extremely complicated as you look at every individual market having built slightly different standards into their electrical power distribution. So by making this a part of the Green New Deal, making it infrastructure, making it tying it and some of its costs to power and energy is a very smart play. Again, I'm sure a lot of people here will disagree with my left-leaning stance on breaking up major corporations and looking at monopolistic or duopolistic business practices. But this actually makes a lot of sense. A huge chunk of this country is woefully underserved. They are irrelevant to the economy of the 21st century. They don't have access to data. They're rural. They don't have access to better education, to better healthcare. What they need are those data pipes going to their communities, but they're not profitable enough for Comcast, AT&T, Verizon to feed those pipes into their communities. And we've just seen wireless isn't going to get the job done because a Verizon can just put up a coverage map and lie about almost 20% of their coverage. 5G is not going to solve any of this. It's probably just going to sort of hide the problem for a little bit longer. So if this is really a part of the plan, this is something that Democrats can get behind, I am on board. This has been phenomenally successful in Chattanooga. This has been successful in every other community that has opted to build their own broadband infrastructure. And we've seen the only thing that motivates Comcast or AT&T to do business in a better fashion is some kind of outside competitive force, usually a municipal funded broadband initiative. So I'm excited to see if anyone else talks about this during the campaign. We had Elizabeth Warren talking about breaking up Facebook, so some interesting policy regarding some of the services. But we need candidates that can go out there and knowledgeably talk about just how do people even get on the internet? Because there are shockingly, I want to say, what did we say it was a couple months back? Something along the line of 20% or 30% of American households don't have access. It's not that they don't have broadband internet. They don't have access to true broadband internet. And the definition of broadband is like 10 megabit down, like it's not fast. So I'll definitely be keeping a lookout on what's going on with this here. From Mbuk, can Bernie also get rid of data caps? If he's talking about treating the internet more like a public utility, that gets us back to net neutrality. If we start recovering what we lost from net neutrality, we can start treating this more like a public utility, like we treat the phone lines. We can start chipping away at the administrative costs and the infrastructure costs, because a lot of it is taxpayer funded anyway. And these companies are going to have to do more than just, deliver 7 different unlimited plans that none of them are unlimited and all of them throttle. Once we have the regulatory oversight to protect this, that's actually one of the areas where the FTC can come in. If Verizon claims we can do this and you can get this speed, and then they don't deliver that, then even the FTC can go after them. And then we'd also have the FCC as the big dog with the real teeth to make sure that these regulations are being held to. But that would be nice. Again, it would be more reasonable policy, and it would be nationwide. Remember, we talked a couple weeks back about Ajit Pai being really cranky about states' rights, because states' rights are getting in the way of him deregulating the internet so that Verizon can profit from doing nothing more. Again, conservatives don't seem to like states' rights when it comes to things like more reasonable infrastructure and, making sure that people have some base level of protection against corporate interests. At the most, underfunded, small commission kind of way in our government, net neutrality was like the bare minimum. But because they got rid of net neutrality at the federal level, now every state is going to have different regulations that companies will have to do business with in different ways. It is so much worse for businesses having 50 different net neutrality laws in every state than having one super low level, barely adequate federal standard. But this is this is the consequence of short-term fiscal quarter thinking, and why an Ajit Pai is completely incapable of running this commission adequately. Ruru 2, Bernie can't do anything on his own. The system is still way too corrupt. But what Bernie can do is scare people. Again, like I've said, I feel one of the failings of the Obama administration was being honest with what he really wanted. So he'd put out this plan that he thought was reasonable, and then it would get dragged to the right. The cool thing about a Bernie Sanders is he's going to scare people into going way, way far to the left. And then when he gets dragged more to the center, we'll probably end up with more reasonable policy, right? But again, a part of this is going to have to be condemning the current state of gridlock in the United States House and Senate. Let's see. From Evil Duder 1. Hey, I'm living the life. 2 megabit for $120. From Mbuk, 300 down, 30 up for $50 a month here. So you're roughly getting my speeds, and you're paying a little less than half of what I'm paying. From Sam, I think this publicly supported option is worth discussing. Again, if we're going to say that broadband is 10 megabits, I'd love to have a base level of service available to all Americans through your power company, and then a Comcast or a Verizon could come out on top and say, hey, well, for higher speed options, you can do business with us, or we also offer these other services that go along with your internet connection. You don't have to buy your own modem. There are other value adds that they can put on top of that, but we should all have access to some minimum standard, some minimum coverage. Hold on one second. I just got an important text, and I need to reply right now. Okay, sorry. Moving on with the show. That's the end of the politics block. Let's see. Ruru 2. It's good to have a shill in charge of the FCC. Jim 72165. It was in North Dakota. Actually has some good fiber rollout too. Internet businesses are going up in rural areas all over North Dakota. The Dakotas have done a really surprisingly good job of building out infrastructure, and they've been installing a lot of fiber too. Sorry, I just got two comments back to back. From Natakun61, my dad still calls our home internet high speed 10 megabits. I wanted to do some kind of holiday stream or live stream while I was out traveling. And let me tell you, high speed in New Mexico, not that fast. Again, it's like people have been conditioned to think I can barely stream Netflix with it kind of buffering occasionally, and that's high speed internet. There is almost no infrastructure out there to upload things to the internet. This is like the killer problem with all of these streaming services, gaming services, cloud services. Like, you want to put these things up on servers, or you want to have like a box full of hard drives under your desk. We need that infrastructure if any of these services are going to improve. And then that spills over and improves healthcare and improves education, improves everything. But we can't get there if we're all locked up. So let me get this out of the way here. Abraham Artemis, people trying to get 5G right now. Hold up. Let me get out of the building first. And from Boang Byte, it amazes me how bad fiber infrastructure is, how bad the rollout is in the United States. It was going great, and then all of these companies pulled the plug, and it was terrible. So, out of politics, I did want to talk about something kind of cool in the space of digital communications. Like I put out that call at the beginning of this podcast, if you've been playing with different social media platforms, there's like this generational turnover where things that were kind of kitschy and fun and trendy on the internet, sorry, I've got something in my eye, kitschy and fun and trendy on the internet are starting to be taken more seriously in a very mainstream kind of way. And so this isn't a huge story, but I just think it's a good indication of where content is going and how content is being respected regardless of how or where it's produced. So the Pulitzer Prize Board, recently put out a press release that they're going to initiate a new podcast category. So this is from their press release. The Pulitzer Prize Board today announced a new journalism prize category for the 2020 prize cycle, audio reporting. Quote, the renaissance of audio journalism in recent years has given rise to an extraordinary array of nonfiction storytelling. To recognize the best of that work, the Pulitzer Prize Board is launching an experimental category to honor it. The new prize will be for a distinguished example of audio journalism that serves, sorry, I just lost the phrase, that serves the public interest characterized by revelatory reporting and illuminating storytelling. Reading and talking and looking and communicating all at the same time is difficult. Basically, what they're talking about is they're going to try a category on podcasting, the distribution of audio storytelling and audio news for a Pulitzer Prize. I think this is really interesting, untangling the current distribution from the recognition of good work. So it used to be, like the translation from the translation from writing an article and putting it in a newspaper to writing an article and putting it up on a website seemed pretty easy. Most of that still has to be vetted. Most of that still has to be edited. You know, you've got to fact check it. If it's, you know, a newspaper in print versus a newspaper online, that seems to be one-to-one, and they often would just go out together. You know, if your article was published in a newspaper, it shows up on the website, and that's handy. That's easy to recognize for the Pulitzer Prize board. But when it comes to something like podcasting, that's a little bit more difficult. I'm sure the nominees for this first look at audio reporting as a Pulitzer Prize category are going to be mostly from sources that are very traditional news organizations. But that distribution is free of the expected market for radio or for television. That separating of the distribution is a part of the service of podcasting. Like, you don't have to wait for it to air at a specific time. There's no on-demand service you need to subscribe to. It's a completely open platform built on established internet subscription tools. Everyone's trying to make it proprietary. You know, like, everyone wants to lock down podcasting for their own specific service, but no one's won yet, and hopefully no one ever will win, so that podcasting can be a free and open distribution method. That to me is fascinating, that it's now being taken seriously enough that one of the most respected prizes in journalism is now looking at how do we reward the effort that goes into good news distribution, even if that news distribution doesn't come from a traditional print or television outlet, which is amazing. Abraham Artemis, hashtag Pulitzer for SGGQA. I seriously doubt I will ever be lined up for a Pulitzer Prize. I'll keep trying, though. I'll make this podcast every week, and someone out there nominate me, and they'll tell me why I'll never get a Pulitzer Prize. Okay, wrap up news block. We've got two quick stories that make me super, super sad. I still have it out over here. This is my beloved Lumia 1520. This is still one of the most iconic and one of the most fun phablets ever created in the history of smartphone manufacturing. And according to Microsoft, tomorrow, December 10th, is the end of support for Windows 10 Mobile. This isn't a press release. This is their FAQ, their FAQ. As of December 10, 2019, Windows 10 Mobile users are no longer eligible to receive new security updates, non-security hotfixes, free assisted support options, or online technical content updates from Microsoft for free. It's all done, folks. Can I get an F in chat for Windows 10 Mobile? In addition to that, they also put out an advisory. Office apps for Windows 10 Mobile will be going end of life January 12th, 2021. So for those of you that have still been holding out, because we've been talking about the death of Windows Mobile for a while now, or excuse me, we should say the death of Windows Phone. The death of Windows Mobile came with the beginning of Windows Phone. Matt Tyler, yellow. For those of you who hold out for some of those core services, what makes a smartphone functional, what makes a smartphone usable, it's also all of the extra apps and product support. So now we also have a timeline on when probably some key services. I can't imagine trying to use a phone in this day and age without my Office apps and without OneDrive. Like, I just rely on those services real heavy. And it looks like that's going to be going away the beginning of 2021. So I'll have one more year if I ever decide to fire up one of my Windows phones, even though the phone itself will not be getting any fixes, bug fixes, security patches, anything like that. And it's a time of reflection for me as we get into the end of the year, as we talk about, you know, what was the best of 2019 and what are we looking forward to 2020. and looking back even a little bit further at how good Windows Phone, Windows 10 Mobile, how interesting of a concept of it, it was, how ahead of the curve it was for a lot of the ergonomic issues that are facing Android and iOS. Things like dark modes. Windows 10 was nothing but dark mode. It's kind of sad. I feel like the mobile space would be a lot more interesting if we had more competition. And knowing that Microsoft is going to be going to Android for their return to phones makes me excited for hardware. I'm a hardware junkie. Give me more hardware. Cool, let's do it. But it also makes me kind of sad that we won't get a competitor to Google, a competitor to Apple, to make sure that Google and Apple are staying on their toes. For a lot of the complaints that we hear about incremental or iterative updates and how these announcements aren't as exciting as they used to be, I think a part of that is complacency. You look at what Apple did this year, and a lot of it catches them up to Android, and then they add a few little features. And then Android looks at what's been successful on iOS, and they like swiping on iOS, so let's make gestures happen. And then they kind of just reach parity with iOS. There's no incentive to try and do something truly disruptive. And that's, unfortunately, I think that's what we need the most, is someone who's willing to be the third place, still offer up a good, healthy, cohesive ecosystem, and compete on some of these other ideas on how we can interact with data and services. So along with, Maniac, Natakun, Noob Master, Boing Byte, Ken, press F to pay your respects. I will be so sad when I pick up a Windows phone and it's non-functional, like, you pick up a Palm device, a WebOS phone, and it can't even connect to servers anymore because so much of it was web-based. There will come a day where I go back through some of this awesome, amazing Nokia hardware that the industry is only just now starting to pass. Like what this phone could do, the Lumia 1520, is only just this year getting bested by Android devices. That should tell you something about what we lost. Boing Byte, it needs a Viking funeral. Yeah, it does, except I'm always nervous to put anything with batteries in it anywhere near an open flame. From Vazikos 8, if you remember the Nokia 9 with MeeGo, now Android 10 has the same kind of swipes. Only the gestures on Android 10 are not as organically incorporated into the Android operating system as BlackBerry OS 10 or as MeeGo was on the N9. When you build the operating system with those swipes in mind, gestures make way more sense than, well, we got to get rid of the home button. How could we do that? I know, we'll make a swipe, and that's more complicated and harder to do than a home button, but it's the same thing. People will get used to it. It's not the same. It is not. You need to rebuild the operating system around gestures, not just staple them on because it's convenient. The Sentinel 909, all those people glorifying the Galaxy Fold because it's just so refreshing to have something different, not giving an F or bemoaning the passing of Windows Mobile. Echo chambers all over the place. It is. It's why I kind of feel, and something that we'll be covering a lot in 2020, smartphones are a commodity. They aren't the exciting, sexy piece of technology that they used to be. You kind of need one. You have to have one. But that doesn't make them fun and disruptive, and now they're commonplace. So what we need to do is start looking at the post-smartphone world, and something I've been talking about since before I was on the Pocket Now team years ago. So this is a conversation I've been having for the last 4 years, and we're here. We're at peak smartphone. The smartphone is now a commodity just like any other tech computing platform, a desktop, a laptop. It's normal. And so now we need to look at what do we do after this tech has been normalized. So This is the perfect time to take a quick break. Guys, we made it through the news block, housekeeping, everything, and we're under an hour. Come on. I am on fire. Proud of me. So this is where we're going to take just a quick little stop to talk about one of the projects near and dear to my heart. Like I was just criticizing it, the current tech discussion and tech review industry seems to be a little top heavy on popularity metrics. What the most popular topics for search are going to be the most lucrative to talk about. So it starts to feel like a meritocracy, like, well, this is the best product because it's the most popular, and that's not true. So one of the initiatives that I've been trying to work on, it's a subreddit that I started years ago. This year, I really tried to put a little bit more focus on it, is a way to promote newer and smaller voices in tech discussion, YouTube channels, writers, bloggers, who I feel deserve more attention, and making that an open platform for other people to share and to contribute to. A lot of podcasts have subreddits. Come hit our subreddit and tell us how great we are. My subreddit is all about, come share a new content creator with me, and I hope it's someone I've never seen before, because I want to watch new videos and find new voices talking about technology. So if you go to reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles, this is my subreddit. It's a small, tiny little community, but it's growing every week. We're getting a lot more people submitting content. What we also need are more people upvoting and commenting on this. What I really hope this platform will be is a way to feed. I want this to be a feeder subreddit. So if something is popular on Glowing Rectangles, maybe it catches the eye of someone else looking to share it on a much larger subreddit or on a much larger platform. And that's a huge help to a content creator who's trying to build an audience or monetize their channel. So like, you put out a review on, 1 year with the Galaxy S9, and it resonates with someone and they share it over on our Android, that could blow up for you, and that could be really good for your channel. So these are the top stories this week, this last week, for reddit.com/r/glowing rectangles. We can immediately skip over the first one because he's such a punchable face dude, just ranting and railing about the Pixel 4 XL. I don't know that anything he says is ever correct, so we can ignore that one right off the bat. Just as a quick aside, for anyone who might be tuning in fresh, it is exceedingly rare that my videos are ever at the top of my own subreddit. Just letting you know, this is not a stroke some gadget guy's ego subreddit. This really is a content discovery subreddit. You'll find cool stuff here, I promise. Not just me. Moving on. The number 2 spot, immediately behind that Pixel video, Joshua Vergara, Motorola One Hyper, a $400 pixel binning beast? ? Taking some time with the Motorola One Hyper and killing it with some good views and some solid content there. In the number 3 spot, we've got Pixel 4 XL versus iPhone 11 Pro Max. This is not app launching speed test. It's a real speed test coming from in-depth reviews. I have not watched that video, but that was posted by Kanzen04, getting some views there. And then one of my new favorite channels this year, Gadget Byte, taking a look at the Vivo V17. Gadget Byte has become one of the channels I'm watching more regularly just to catch up on the myriad number of mid-ranger phones that don't come to the United States. I like their production style. I like how chill their reviews are. They're not hyped. They're not sensationalist. And there are so many of these like BBK brand phones that I just never get my hands on, and they cover a lot of them. So I've been watching a lot of that. And just rounding out the rest of the list, we've got Gary Explains talking about Snapdragon 865. We've got Issa Does Tech looking at some strange AirPod-like things that are not AirPods. So that's a big tease right there. What could these things be? We've got Terry Warfield giving some tips and tricks on how to improve your video content. Some more Sennheiser Momentum 3 aptX samples. We've got LFA reviews comparing the Liberty 2 Pro versus the Apple AirPods. We've got a look at the Pocketbook InkPad, an e-ink display coming from Good E-Reader. That's a channel I'll need to subscribe to that. I didn't know that there was an e-reader review channel out there. And rounding out the top 10, Joan McCullough, 1.5 thousand subscribers, also sharing her thoughts on the Liberty 2 Pro. And she seems like she's a little more critical of the Liberty 2s. So that could be a good counterpoint to some of the coverage that's come out of, say, LFA's channel. So let me get this out of the way here. I put this out there. I found a new channel today on reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles that I'd never watched before. Channel's at around 40,000 subscribers. Great medium-sized channel, high-quality presentation, higher quality presentation than what I put out, and talking about the Pixel 4 in a very even-handed way. You know, again, there are some of these voices out there that are hungry, that are looking to build their communities, host these kinds of conversations, and it's a far cry from the type of algorithmic manipulation that you'll find on YouTube. My YouTube is full of 2020 iPhone rumors and 2020 Samsung rumors. And look, throughout all of this, there is a ton of other tech that we're talking about. It's just you go and subscribe to, you know, a Joan McCullough with 1.5 thousand subscribers, 1,500 subscribers, and immediately they're going to say, YouTube is going to say, oh, well, if you like channels that talk about tech, you should follow Unbox Therapy. You should follow MKBHD. And you're like, those channels don't need YouTube's help getting more subscribers. Joan McCullough needs YouTube's help because she's putting out great content, well thought out, great presentation. She's got a unique voice. She only has 1,500 subscribers. We can fix that. We can help that. We can make that better. But we need to do that through active participation. Just passively watching one of these videos or just sharing one of these videos on a Reddit platform. A passive view doesn't get a content creator much, but someone who's willing to at least thumbs up a video, share that video, drop a comment on that video, that's all the kind of engagement that really does help build a channel over time, and it keeps the content creator healthy. It keeps them hungry for making more content. So if you want more good content in the tech space, you got to participate. You actually got to put a little effort into sharing and promoting the stuff what you like. So that's the final plug. Reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles. Let me take a sip of water here. I hope you'll check it out. And I'll make this plea, I'll make this promise every time. If you go and check out the subreddit and you've never been there before, I can all but guarantee you will find a channel you've never seen before that will become a channel you'll love to watch. You want to promote someone, you want to share someone, that's the place to do it. But don't be stingy with the upvotes. You make it through there, click a couple up arrows on these content creators, help give them a little bit more search engine visibility, and it'll come back to you karmically in getting the best content across the web that you would like to watch. All right, looks like Fat Produce has joined the live chat. Sentinel 909, Gadget Bite is super chill. That's my reason for loving them too. I like their vibe. It's such a great channel. Sentinel 909 also. That's also very true. Juan is rarely at the top of the subreddit. LFA Reviews also throwing out the shout. Joan is a great audio reviewer. I don't know that praise gets higher than LFA talking about another reviewer and saying great. So if you're not subscribed to Joan's channel and you're watching this or listening to this, go subscribe to Joan's channel. Let's see. Ken saying hydrate. Let me take another drink of water here. You're right, Ken. Sentinel 909. Everyone in YouTube tech is talking more about the Unbox Therapy case fiasco than actual tech. Which again, if you're in it to create YouTube drama videos, more power to you. go make your drama video. Drama is exciting, and drama gets clicks and drama gets views. I have a vested interest in talking about tech reviews, less just generating drama. So obviously I get real cranky in my videos and I like to point out trends, but I feel it's important to separate that from just the gladiatorial combat entertainment of people calling out popular YouTuber or can they be trusted? Because I don't find that to be particularly entertaining. But I also don't enjoy reality TV because it's fake. If you called it fake TV, then I would probably be more interested in watching it. But you called it reality, and it's obviously fake. Anyway, moving right along. At Boing Byte, Zeos is great, but there are many, many more of us here in the audio space. Matt Tyler, Juan? Cranky? Never. Oh, you. So, we got some time. I usually get to the end of the news and the Reddit plug and like, okay, well, let's wrap up all of the gadget news in like 10 minutes. And then I end up going another 45. I missed it. Who posted about talking about the pixel drops? Was it Ken? Ken, did you talk about that? I can't find it. Sorry. Yes, the first story I want to talk about is what's coming to our Pixel 4s. Because we like to talk strategies. And I really like to talk philosophy. I'm currently taking off the absolutely filthy, I spilled coffee on it case from my Pixel 4. So when I hold up the phone, it's not revoltingly distracting. Fabric cases look real good on your first week of using it. And then life happens. And then fabric cases get gross fast. I put that out as a little joke in my Pixel 4 review. Maybe we shouldn't take Pixel 4 review seriously until we see that the fabric case has gotten some life on it. But I digress. The Pixel 4 is going to be getting a new feature drop strategy. So coming directly from the Google blog, blog.google, making Pixel more helpful with the first Pixel... Yes, sorry. Making Pixel more helpful with the first Pixel feature drop. I don't know why that became such a brain twister. All right, but written up by Shanaz Zak, Group Product Manager on the Pixel team. Your phone should get better over time. Your Pixel automatically updates regularly with fixes and improvements. Now your Pixel will also get bigger updates in new Pixel feature drops. Our first one coming this month includes a new way to capture portraits, easier duo calls, and automatic call screening. So I like this public disclosure. I like this public discussion because it sets expectations, and we now have a threshold to hold that company accountable for what they promised versus what they actually delivered. And in a more granular way than company made a promise that they'll get the next Android operating system update out by next quarter. And then it doesn't really happen, but it's a whole quarter, it's a quarter of the year. So we don't really pay attention to whether or not they really pushed out that update. Also, one of the things that I really like about these feature drops is something that I wish more manufacturers would be doing. It seems like a lot of these updates are really going to be coming by way of individual app updates through Google Play. I pick up my LG. I love my LGs, but I really wish that camera app wasn't updated through over-the-air updates. So you have to wait for a full phone operating system or security patch update, and then you get an update to the camera app along with it. I feel like HTC never got enough credit for this, where they carved up all of their services. They were all on Google Play. You could only get them if you had an HTC. But when the team responsible for the music player app finished an update for the music player app, the music player app just got the update. You didn't have to wait for HTC to roll out this behemoth software operating system over-the-air update. get that approved for the carriers, get that sent out in stages to all of the various owners of the phone. No, you just went to Google Play and the launcher just got an update. OnePlus does this pretty well too, where the gallery is updated separately of the whole rest of the phone. The launcher is updated separately of the whole rest of the phone. It makes this device management so much more nimble. So a part of this, we're talking about new features. If this is going to be a major selling point of the Pixel, software services, again, this was part of my argument. Google is a software company. They are making a platform to show off software services. First and foremost, that's what this phone is. We're not judging this against an everything in the kitchen sink hardware company. Google is a software company. So feature drops, that is actually the bang for buck. That is the value I would expect from Google. So getting back into their press release here as I drink just a little bit more water. From Boeing Byte, you should machine wash your case. And then Ken, from the people who I've heard from, machine washing breaks the plastic part on the inner part of the case. What I might do is like, I occasionally hit it with like a disinfecting wipe, but I think I'm gonna try and leave the stains on my Pixel 4 case. Like, I want to show this phone has been used, not just like, oh yeah, I totally reviewed the Pixel the week it came out, and it's not worth buying because I used it for 3 days, and the battery life in 3 days was terrible, because that's how reviewing a phone works. I will be pulling my SIM card out of it soon, because I've got more devices to review. But it's been really hard. Usually I finish up a phone review and then my SIM card goes right back into a V50 or to a G8. And I haven't immediately pulled the SIM card out of my Pixel 4. It's weird. It's an emotional thing. It's a feel thing. It's not like, oh, here's the quantifiable data as to why I keep my SIM card in my Pixel 4. I can't really explain it because I'm a hardware guy, but there's something about the Pixel 4 that's kind of doing it for me. Anyway, getting on to the feature drop. At the top of the improvements list here, more photo controls. So now you can turn a photo into a portrait on Pixel by blurring the background post-snap. So whether you took the photo years ago or you forgot to turn on portrait mode, you can easily give each picture an artistic look with portrait blur in Google Photos. Excuse me. Something that I actually am surprised has taken them this long to implement is obviously you don't have any of the depth tracking information when you shoot a regular photo, but Google has been so good at subject detection and edge detection that it's probably not super difficult to start turning that feature on for other types of photos. So Ken already beat me to it. Night sight portraits. So you're in low light conditions, you take a photo of someone in super dark conditions and you use night sight, then you can go and run that photo back through Google Photos and lightly blur the background just a little to give it a bit more of that shallower depth of field. Again, that combination of services sounds to me like it should work really well, and especially for how good Google's software has gotten at detecting your subject. I need to do... So I'm really bummed. Instagram kind of cropped my holiday photo, and I don't like how they cropped it, but it's the easiest... Oh, you know what? No, I can pull it up on Twitter. Give me 1 second. Because I nailed probably one of the best holiday images I think I've ever captured from a phone. And it was on the Pixel 4, and it was, again, thanks to Night Sight. As much trash as I was talking about the Pixel 3 back in the day, I had a moment. We had just finished sort of decorating the tree. We don't have any other decorations up, so this whole corner of the living room is totally bare. But Lex was holding her light up nose, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, and this was the photo that I landed, diving onto the floor and taking, like the phone is mashed into the carpet so that I can angle it up to catch her and the tree together. And it's one of those in the moment point and shoot situations that the Pixel is just an incredible performer for. So now if I can combine that immediacy with some better editing tools, I think that's a great win for Pixel devices. So let me come back here and get this out of the way. Oh, thanks, guys. Cuckoo 8, that's a sick capture. Boeing Bite, wow. Ken, beautiful. I mean, how good is that? Our phones are so amazing. It's not to say that I don't think I could have captured something like that if I'd had my LG in my hand, or, if the iPhone night sight is better than the Google night sight. That's not the point. I'm not trying to say only the Pixel 4 could have captured this image. I was able to capture that image because of a phone. I would not have gotten that moment of my daughter sitting, holding her stuffed reindeer, wearing a Santa hat with her name on it backwards, because she put on the hat backwards. She was looking at her name when she put the hat on, so it's all cocked to the side. Again, this entire string, this entire moment, and like seconds after I shot, I got 2 shots with night sight, and one had the nose on because the nose blinks, the Rudolph nose blinks. One had the nose on, one had the nose off, and then she was up and running around again. That was the time. Like that's what you get now. And if I had been sort of a snob about needing to have my really nice mirrorless camera to shoot my holiday photos, that's a moment I wouldn't have captured. But I can get those moments with phones, and that's going to make an awesome print. Like, we're going to go and get a canvas print of this made. A large format, probably, I don't know, like 11 by 17. Not large, medium-sized. But that's going to go up on a wall. That's going to be one of our holiday, portraits. It's great. I mean, it's so good. Again, can't do that with regular cameras in the moment like we can just snap with a phone these days, which is incredible. LFA reviews, print it and frame it. Yeah, again, I don't like some of the crunchiness of a phone HDR photo for glossy stills, but I'm telling you guys, if you have access to like a Costco, phone photos, as they start to get grainy, as that noise reduction starts to make some of the photo a little edgy, those things look so good as canvas prints, where there's a natural texture to the material that you're printing the photo out on. And so, my mom wanted a photo of Lex looking at a snail. And it's the same situation. She saw a snail. She dived to the ground. I had the G8, the LG G8. I dived to the ground. I got 2 shots off. And then Lex was up and running around again. And we did a canvas print of that photo, a photo from a phone. And it looks so good. It's just incredible. So, and LFA, that's totally correct. Sorry, I'm just, if I'm going to shill for any company, I love Costco. But LFA is correct. You can order canvas prints through the Google Photo app. I had one done, and it came out great. Shipped to my house for less than $40. Oh, see, okay, so that's right in line. My super large Lex running through a fountain photo, I think, was $38, but I had to go and pick it up. So it wasn't shipped. That's great. If you can get canvas prints done for $40, nice. All right, back to the Pixel 4 and the feature drop. They're finally rolling out some of the improvements to screening robocalls. It's something that they've been talking about at Google I/Os. So they're gonna be transcribing, kind of like they used to do Google Voice and Project Fi style, but then also giving you the opportunity to screen out spam calls. Then this one I thought was kind of interesting is how they're going to try and improve video calls on Duo. Let me go actually read this directly from their blog post. Video calls are better on the Pixel 4 with new Duo features that let you focus on conversations instead of logistics. Auto framing keeps your face centered during your Duo video call, even as you move around thanks to the Pixel 4's wide-angle lens. And if another person joins you in the shot, the camera automatically adjusts to keep both of you in the frame. Excuse me. And now the playback on your Duo calls is even smoother too. When a bad connection leads to spotty audio, a machine learning model on your Pixel 4 predicts the likely next sound and helps you to keep the conversation going with minimum disruptions. Pixel 4's smooth display also reduces choppiness on your video feed, refreshing up to 90 times per second. Okay, so to unravel some of that, let me click back out of here. First of all, the kind of crop pan and scan could be kind of fun. My folks and my grandparents love setting up a tablet and then sitting in a nicely posed, composed, well-lit environment to have their video calls. Again, I feel like this is generational. Parents and grandparents putting on their best face. I mean, they're dressed nicely. Everything's the environment is clean. My mom has to kind of like pick up around the living room before she'll do a video call with my daughter. Whereas I get a video call from my mom and I'm just like, hey, look at Lex. Hey, she's doing stuff. Watch, we're gonna run around. Whee! And then my living room is trashed because I have a toddler. If you're holding your phone, I don't know that that's gonna be a huge perk, but I wouldn't mind encouraging people to set their phones down while doing more video calls. I'd like to make this sort of an etiquette thing. Like I a couple weeks back, I talked about how we almost got into an accident bad in a parking lot in a Trader Joe's, and the guy gets out of his car and he's still mid-conversation on a video call. Like he never stopped. So he was doing a video call while driving through a parking lot and almost ran over a family of 3. The idea of, hey, if you put your phone down or if you invest in stands or you have a wireless charging pad, any of these things, you put your phone down and that you'll have a virtual cameraman follow you around, I think is a really compelling idea. So I'm hoping that that's implemented well. The thing that I think is kind of shocking, man, I'm getting near the end of my voice here. From Boeing Bite, no vertical videos. I agree. For the other exciting thing about this Duo thing, I can't overstate how awesome the on-device transcription services have been on the Pixel. This is something that I think is going to be coming to the Pixel 3 and the 3A. But more than just you have a recorder app and it transcribes in the recorder app, the fact that you've got global on-device speech recognition that works surprisingly fast, if they're using that engine to then predict, like, we're following you in this conversation on Duo, and the audio is starting to get spotty, and the microphones can prime for what they think you're going to say next to optimize the audio feed is science fiction. Like, first of all, I don't even know how you can test for that, but that's crazy software. That is fantasy software. You know, it's like looking at all of those crime procedurals of the early 2000s where they'd pull up a photo of the crime scene from a security camera and then say, zoom in, enhance, and then it would magically recreate a crystal clear HD image of the suspect off of the reflection of someone's tie clip from a grainy security cam. Audio is often disregarded in our tech discussions. It makes me really sad because I'm an audio junkie. Those kinds of tools would be incredible if the phone really can optimize for your conversation based on sort of conversational patterns, and it can do it on device. That this isn't something that has to be like primed server side, that the phone is capable of doing that. To me, that sounds like magic. So again, I don't even know how I could test it, but that could be incredible. I don't know. We'll have to see. From Cuckoo8, that's insane software skills for sure. Matt Tyler, next, holographic projection calls. I agree. 3 to beam up. From Boeing Byte, they adjust the microphone directional capture probably. I don't know that the Pixel microphone array is really primed for the kind of directional focusing that we've seen from like Nokia and from LG. LG played with that for a little bit too. But more, it's if they can analyze the audio disruptions in the signal path, account for noise in the environment, and then highlight the pieces of information that will make audio easier to understand for the receiver in real time based on common speech patterns. Like, again, that sounds like magic to me. Now that I explain that chain out a little bit more out loud, it's not magic, but the coding hurdles in accomplishing that seem profound, like really difficult. All right, let me get this out of the way here. Oh, and then lastly, there was the other Pixel features coming from this feature drop. Let me just jump back in here. More helpful features. The Recorder app is going to be coming to older generations of the Pixel. Pixel 3a and 3a users will get live caption. That on a 3a, a Pixel 3a is going to get live caption. That's so cool. More digital well-being and focus modes are coming to all of the Pixels. Flip to Shush is coming to digital well-being on the Pixel 2 and 2 XL. And if you use a Pixel 4 in the UK, Canada, Ireland, Singapore, and Australia, you'll soon get the new Google Assistant, but it's only coming in English. So a major claim from Google is their software superiority. If you buy a Pixel, you're not getting the craziest hardware. I don't think that's a controversial statement at all. But the point should be, will Google really use this as a platform to promote, highlight, and distribute the most cutting-edge features of Android software development? And with some of this, if the feature drop can be maintained consistently, where they really are regularly putting out not only bug fixes and security patches and operating system updates, but also these feature updates, then I think the Pixel has made a much better argument for its existence longer term. All of the same criticisms still apply. All of the pros and cons are still there. But now what I really want to see, I really want to see that the Pixel 4 at the end of 2020 is a very different phone than the Pixel 4 was at the end of 2019. If they pull that off, then I feel hopefully we'll get a lot of long-term wrap-up reviews and after buzz style videos on the Pixel 4 saying, hey, maybe this wasn't so bad after all. Because I feel like the Pixel 4 has not quite gotten the fair consideration that it probably should have. Part of that's Google's fault. Part of that's the tech industry's fault, but it's something we can correct for. From Ken, Flip to Shush is criminally underrated. From Goran Petrovic, how will Google and Apple explain bringing back new Qualcomm 17 times bigger fingerprint sensors under the display? I don't know. I feel is there a problem with Google or Apple using Qualcomm fingerprint sensors? I'm not entirely sure what you're asking there, Mr. Petrovic. From Ken, I'll be using Motion Sense a lot on my way to throw my MacBook at Juan's front door. Let me know when you're here and I'll frisbee out my Pixel Book and we'll do a fun aerial exchange of our favorite laptops. Okay, wrapping up this podcast, the biggest news over this last week, I don't get invited to go to Hawaii to be super impressed by fun travel in exotic locales to then go and talk about a tiny little processor that barely fits between your fingers. But Qualcomm did pull the covers off the new Snapdragon 865 5G mobile platform. Let me pull this up here. Qualcomm Snapdragon 865 mobile platform scales 5G and leading 5th-gen AI to power next-generation premium devices with breakthrough features. From gigapixel speed photography to desktop-level gaming features to staggering multi-gigabit 5G connectivity. Our leading 5th-gen Qualcomm Artificial Intelligence Engine AI engine drives on-device experiences that are more intuitive, intelligent, and responsive than ever before, including smarter voice assistants with contextual awareness. For stunning photography, the new Qualcomm Spectra 480 ISP captures professional quality videos at gigapixel speeds while simultaneously taking brilliant 64-megapixel photos. Plus, brand new Qualcomm Snapdragon Elite gaming features bring desktop-level gaming to mobile with ultra-realistic graphics from a revved-up and then I forgot to click more. GPU and desktop forward renderer, this dynamic performance is fueled by a resilient battery for intense gameplay throughout the day. So that's the 865. It's pretty cool, right? Hashtag some sarcastic guy. Okay. So here's my thing. A lot of what they're talking about on the 865, I believe, will be welcome improvements to the ultra premium tier of smartphone computing. It's already frustrating that we've been seeing test bench devices show off Geekbench scores, and that a majority of the commentary has been hinged on, can this 865 chip beat the current Apple A series chip? And the only thing we're going to look at is a Geekbench score. I don't believe Qualcomm will ever outpace Apple in a one-score comprehensive benchmark where Apple is leveraging custom silicon to power their mobile handsets, and Qualcomm is building an all-rounder chipset that has to perform for dozens of different manufacturers. I don't think that's ever going to be the fight that we care about. But what I think Qualcomm is finally starting to get right, and it's something that I think Huawei actually led the way on better, are all of these little component core plugins, AI cores, better ISP performance so that the camera isn't having to lean on the CPU as heavy for the basic functionality of the camera. Well, in 2020, basic functionality for a camera is going to be a significant amount of pixel binning, as we have these crazy 48, 64, 108 megapixel camera sensors that all squish those individual pixels into smaller JPEGs. So instead of using the processor for that, where you end up with a phone like the Nokia 9, where you're squishing 5 cameras together and the performance is super, super slow, if you make it a component on the chipset to do all of that lifting for you, then the CPU doesn't have to run as hard. You end up with smoother, sleeker, faster performance. Even Apple is looking at the modularity of their multi-core CPU performance, and they're pushing some things over to neural processing and machine learning. They're pushing some things over to the ISP. They have their own dedicated chip just for enhanced Bluetooth connectivity. All of those things working hand in hand make the more comprehensive argument for improving phone performance. One of the things that again, after using the Pixel 4, moving more of these services on device is going to be really exciting. Huawei started this off with the Kirin 970, where it was doing image recognition through the camera ISP. And one of the little neural cores that the NPU that they built into the Kirin chipset. And then you would see it. You would hold the phone up, and you would hold the phone up on a dog, and it would go pet. A little pet icon pops up almost instantly in the bottom corner of the phone. That kind of performance needs to happen on the device. I feel as we move more of these services out of cloud servers and back onto our phones, it actually should make our phones a bit more secure. Data isn't being moved around over the internet to be analyzed. It's happening in our hands, And then likely after the analysis has been done, that information's going up to Google anyway. But still, when we need it, it's there on the device. So that makes me, that's the kind of stuff that makes me the most excited. What kinds of services and what kind of features are going to benefit from that on-device computational power? I'm not concerned about the other claims here. Yes, it's nice when we get better gaming performance. I'm glad that the focus that they're pointing towards isn't just, 20% better CPU performance and 20% better GPU performance. It's they're customizing the GPU to run more efficiently at higher frame rates. So the 865 is going to do a better job of supporting these fluid motion displays, 90 hertz, 120 hertz. Some people talking about the potential for 144 hertz displays on phones with less of a battery hit. Fair criticism of the Pixel 4, you turn on all the eye candy, you turn on all of the radar gestures, all of the anticipatory features of the phone, and the battery life can drain pretty quick. So, for next year, Qualcomm is finally stepping up to improve support for some of these outlier features, and we should see a battery improvement. The features run great today at the expense of some battery. Hopefully next year, they'll run about the same, but we'll get better battery performance out of those features. That, to me, becomes the more important evolutionary discussion as we talk through somewhat iterative updates to this. I'm not impressed with 20% better CPU performance. Not just as a blanket statement, up to 20% better CPU. Because so many people have already overbought performance that they don't need. From the Snapdragon 835 on, I feel people have been buying phones because they've been worried about the camera, or they want a popular brand that they've seen in a bunch of commercials. They got pressured into spending more at a carrier store because you want the nicer phone. You don't want this mid-ranger. It's not going to be as nice a phone. You want the nicer phone, keeping up with the Joneses. And you watch what people do with their devices, and even today, a Snapdragon 835 is plenty capable to get most people through their day where they wouldn't even notice that they were on an almost 3-year-old chipset. I just got, I've got them here on my desk. I was just holding up the Nokia 9, just got its Android 10 update. I'm going to have a few things to say about that, but I don't think I'm going to do a video. I think I'm going to do a written editorial on my love and disappointment for this phone. But, Snapdragon 845, I finally got my OnePlus fixed. I was complaining during the state of the Patreon, and thank you for the folks that showed up to the Patreon live stream. I got my OnePlus 6, not my OnePlus 6T, my OnePlus 6 updated to Android 10. And using a Snapdragon 845 with Android 10, it's surprisingly clean. Or I shouldn't say, it shouldn't be a surprise. OnePlus makes super fluid, quick, snappy, responsive devices. You would not, in the hand, be able to detect the UI navigation and social media services and communication differences from this phone to a OnePlus 7. That stuff is already maxed out. Like I tap on Twitter, it's the same. the 855 did not make my Twittering any better. So when we get to the 865, what I'm hoping this will lead to, I doubt we'll get much of it from the current tech review space. But I'm hoping what it'll lead to is a broader conversation on maximizing the performance of a pocket computer. Gaming performance is one aspect. Like, if you can achieve near console quality gaming, which Apple and Google keep making this argument, it hasn't quite resonated with general consumers, but there's some great gaming to be done on mobile devices. Then that's a good value add. I still want to get a Switch this Christmas, but I've been playing on the LG G8, the LG G8X, and my OnePlus 7T using a little SteelSeries. I splurged. It was on sale for Black Friday. The little Stratus Duo. It's a traditional dual analog stick controller. It's got a little clip-on mount so that you can stick the phone to the front of the controller. Doesn't work so great on the Stratus, but it works well enough to keep the phone in place. And I'm playing dual stick shooters. I'm playing JRPGs. I'm playing first person shooters. I found my discs for Hexen. If you remember that fantasy Doom game, Hexen, Heretic and Hexen, and I pulled the wad off of that CD. I put it in, and there's an emulator that you can use to play Doom, but it reads all of those wads from all of the software from those other id games, and I'm playing Hexen on a dual stick controller, and it's so good on the phone. Like, it's so smooth. It plays so well. I would love to go back in time and show me how well Hexen played, where it was super choppy on my old PC when that game was new. How a tiny little pocket computer, that game is screamingly good. So that's one aspect. Sorry, I got a little sidetracked there talking about games. The other is also just replacing laptop use. Eventually, it's supposed to come by the end of this month, where it was supposed to come by the end of last month, and it was supposed to be delivered back in September. NextDock are finally putting out their assembly. Like they're in Shenzhen, and they've assembled all of these laptop docks, plugging in a phone, running it off of a laptop dock, and now we've got Snapdragon 845s that we can test. And something tells me if I plug in a Nokia 9, I can't plug in a OnePlus 6, but if I plug in this Nokia 9, which has HDMI output, into a laptop dock, and I run any number of Chrome OS or Chromebook style services, I edit or render video, that it's going to be faster, and it's going to be more powerful than my $1,000 MateBook. I think this phone, which originally retailed for $700, is going to outperform my $1,000 MateBook for a bunch of the services that I use. Snapdragon 865 is cool. It is really cool. And for the next generation of $1,000 plus phones, it's going to be good. We want those improvements. We want those bigger bar graphs and those bigger benchmark scores. But that's not really the game for most consumers anymore. Not in the Samsung A50 territory, not in the Moto G territory. Daily driver phones that are already wonderfully powerful, plenty capable. My Pixel 3a over here, which is charging. Actually, it's done charging. My Pixel 3a retails for $400. It's easy to find for $300. You know, like those types of experiences are now mainstream consumer fare. So that's what I hope we're able to focus on more is if you spend more than $400 on a phone, what do you get for that? Because I do think there are reasons. I think there are reasons why you would want to spend more on a phone. Just like, you know, the debate between a Toyota and a Lexus. Toyota outsells Lexus 10-1, but there are reasons why Lexus as a brand is still considered a success. It's just we want to know what those reasons are. And if it's just, I'm going to show this phone in a review, and look, I can multitask on it, and I can open up Facebook and scroll through my Instagram feed, but this phone isn't worth it. You're like, you didn't do anything on it. You did what a $300 phone could do, which I find to be galling and frustrating. From Ken, the 670 in my Pixel 3a was butter. Mid-range phones are a better buy than they ever were. I would still, I mean, the exception being the limited storage space. I still have not met anyone face-to-face in my circle of friends who can show me an app list that wouldn't be achieved decently well on a Pixel 3a. When I show rendering 4K video on a Pixel 3a, and the Pixel 3a can often hang with and outperform a $1,000 laptop, you're not really hurting. Yes, some things will be smoother on phones that cost more than twice as much as a Pixel 3a. The Snapdragon 670 is not holding that phone back at all. From Ken, aside from gaming, my Pixel 3a felt just as smooth as my 2XL for most tasks, even faster in some. I mean, it is. It is actually slightly more powerful CPU and slightly less powerful GPU. It's absolutely accurate. Here, I'm way behind on some of these. And there's a little conversation. Aditya Anil is in the live chat. Let me get through here. Matt Tyler, everyone else. Hey, we all have 90 hertz. Yay. Asus, hold my beer. 144. Boom. From Q3 Becker, this is something that I think will hopefully benefit Google in their current mission. I'm hoping for dual 4K 60 recording for seamless camera change during video shoots. So this gigapixel performance, what they're talking about, do I have the stats here? It's in this press release somewhere. I've just got to scroll through it. They're saying they should be able to achieve 4K video at 120 frames per second and 8K video at 30 frames per second with true 720p at 960 frames per second. So for a lot of these phones out there that shoot this burst slow motion, it's usually interpolated. I'm pretty sure Sony's doing it too. It's 720p, and it's really shooting at 480 frames per second, which is incredible. That's amazing. But then a little bit of software will double up the frame rate to interpolate what's happening in between each of those frames. And it can look a little weird or blurry or creamy. Kind of like when you turn on a TV, when you turn on a TV's high refresh rate mode, and a show that was shot at 30 frames per second or a movie that was shot at 24 frames per second looks unnaturally gooey. That's kind of what's happening with those slow motion modes. Qualcomm is saying that's gone now. The 865 will literally be able to burst off the camera at 960 frames per second. So with this gigapixel claim that they're making, I would imagine that you could keep multiple cameras running 60 frames per second to do this seamless exchange between a zoom and a wide or a standard and a zoom, something like that. It doesn't sound like they'd be able to run all three, though. So it doesn't sound like they'd be able to keep the wide, the standard, and the zoom all somewhat cranking at 60 frames per second. So I'll be curious to see if this actually changes Google's hardware strategy for 2020. If a Pixel 5 gets 3 cameras, but there's different kinds of support for how those cameras work opposite each other. It doesn't sound like the Snapdragon 865 is going to fully fix that issue that we have with the Pixel 4. Boing Bite, I have a Snapdragon 845. I'm still good here. Aditya Anil, 845 running strong here. Like, it's super overkill for me. A lot of love here for the Pixels, guys. From Ken. Oof, Hexen. Yes. What is it that I'm running it on? Hold on. I've got it. Where? Too many phones. Too many phones. And I don't think my G8X is on. Let me boot it up. There is an emulator app which runs so well on a Bluetooth controller. I just got to boot up the phone and I can tell you. But I have Hexen, Heretic, and Doom 2. Couldn't find original Doom 1, and I can't... what I might just do is sort of sneak around and see what WADs I can find for all of those custom Doom packages. It was a thing back in the day when the original Doom came out and Wolfenstein came out, that people would sort of, do their own mashups or do their own versions of Doom, make their own custom levels. And some of that stuff was really good. Like, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, you can just grab the little WAD file and just like a ROM, like if you, completely legally and honestly source your Nintendo ROMs, you can throw it into a software container on an app and it'll play really well. Like, here it is. So I use Delta Touch. If you look up Delta Touch in Google Play, it's got free Doom on there, but you can drop in any WAD file and it recognizes. And I actually show it in my G8X review, playing Hexen at the end of that. It's really good. It's super good. I love it. From It's Thexy Pat. I have a dream that one day I'll be able to play PC games, Xbox games, and PS and PlayStation games on one universal device, my phone. With game streaming, first of all, if you've got your PlayStation, go fire up the PlayStation app, because you can stream off of your PlayStation and play on your phone. But no, I totally agree. At some point, a lot of this is going to be server side. The computational heavy lifting will be done on someone else's server and then just sort of piped onto whatever screen you want. I think a lot of the core gameplay, it's not going to matter as much what you play on. It's just we have to fix a lot of infrastructure. If you go back to the beginning of this podcast where I was talking about the FCC, that's one of the stumbling blocks we have, is letting carriers and ISP dictate the future strategy of our infrastructure for their own profits and not for actually improving service. When that changes, things like Stadia and xCloud, PlayStation streaming, all of those services will get much, much better. And I would love to see Steam. You know, we have Steam Link, so if I run the game from my PC, I can beam it to another screen on my network, on my home network. But it would be nice if I could pay Steam $10 a month, and then any game in my Steam library I could play from any browser or any computer anywhere I have data. Like, that would be really cool. I would really like that. LFA reviews, I'm too busy with Age of Empires 2. Nice. They're like, oh, let me just go back to the original Half-Life. Oh, lots of people talking about, well, you could just buy like an older flagship. From Ken, at 1080p, Sony uses interpolation. So yeah, I was pretty sure that, oh, maybe not for the 720p, but for the 1080p, yeah. Samsung doesn't do 1080p at 960 for the slow motion. Let's see. Matt Tyler. I just searched Delta Touch on my Google Play Store. It tells me my device isn't supported. And Matt Tyler, of course, has the Asus ROG 2, which would be the perfect phone to play a game like Doom. Oh, man, that's hilarious. It's a freaking gaming phone, FFS. So the other major part of the Snapdragon 865 announcement was talking about 5G. The 5G hardware isn't going to be completely stapled to the Snapdragon 865 because every generation of Snapdragon, it looks like Qualcomm is trying to give them the option of going 5G or holding off. 5G rollout here in the United States has been very, very slow. I had very positive experiences with the limited Sprint coverage that we had out here with the LG V50. But I think it still makes sense where there's probably going to be one more year of 4G only handsets and 5G being a bit more of a premium. And then as we start getting into the also announced the Snapdragon 765, more of a premium mid-ranger chipset. Once more of those come out and we've got that 5G established with the 765 also, I think 2021 rollouts will probably be a bit more robust for people to be taking 5G more seriously. I'll be curious to see how that happens with T-Mobile finally getting in the space here in the United States, Sprint and T-Mobile eventually at some point potentially merging. It's going to happen. Just when is the question. And then whether or not AT&T ever decides to stop playing with fake 5G and give us the real 5G. It should be a competitive year for the premium space. I don't think we'll get much interest here in the United States for the 765 phones. I think a lot of coverage is just going to be focused on the most expensive premium tier, because that's what we do here in the USA is we talk about phones that cost you $50 a month for 30 months. So that was the other major part of it. There was, like they said, they announced the 65s, the 865, the 765. And then also there was some conversation about their Windows on ARM chipsets, the 8C and the 7C. So pretty well-rounded offering from Qualcomm. I feel a lot of people are completely missing the boat, missing the point when they just look at a Geekbench score and it's not as good as the iPhone 11 Pro. Because that's not really how you compare gadgets, is just looking at one score like that. And I'll be really curious to see if any of these improvements really do lend themselves towards things like more robust use, rendering video. I render video on my phones. I put out 4 holiday videos for family and friends. Lex, her second time playing in snow, there's a 2-minute video with an awesome soundtrack for my family, rendered in 4K from my phone with titles, transitions, and a couple little graphic and color correction. Thank you. Sorry. Color corrective tweaks. That's what I do for my family because I can do it from a phone. I didn't shoot all of that footage, go back to a laptop, ignore my family, edit a whole bunch of stuff, render it out, and then share it. As I was capturing clips of my daughter, I would drop them into a video timeline and add transitions. And then while we were watching a Thanksgiving football game, I stitched it all together, pushed render, and it was done. And I was able to share it before we had finished Thanksgiving dinner. Because I love my family. So if that's the argument for more premium phones, I'm all for it. But if the argument for premium phones is it loads your Facebook a fraction of a millisecond faster, then we should all give up on the smartphone market. From Boangbyte, Steam is testing that out with Play Together. It streams the game to another user's computer. See, this is the thing. When it comes to server-side gaming, like Stadia, a lot of people are right that in its current form, it's not going to be good for competitive gaming. But when you've got decent infrastructure and the actual competitive gaming is all being hosted on one rack of servers, and you're just connecting the pipe to control what's happening on that server, I actually think that could be a good thing for competitive gaming. Normalizes the playing field. It makes sure everyone's playing in the exact same sandbox. Probably make it harder for people to cheat. I think when you tie that infrastructure together, it could be really good. But again, the big problem is infrastructure. You got to tie that infrastructure together, and you have to make sure everyone's on roughly the same connection speed for that to be feasible. And that's a big problem, especially here in the United States. From CZ314159, I had an LG V50, but I couldn't get something similar to DeX to run. So the Korean V50 is getting Android 10. The Korean G8 already has Android 10. Android 10 does have the beginnings of a desktop mode, which is similar to DeX. But it's not as fully featured. The big problem with the Android 10 desktop mode is that it doesn't have mouse and keyboard on the phone. So you plug in your phone and a Chromebook style screen pops up on your TV or on your monitor, and then you don't have any way of controlling it. So I showed this off on the OnePlus 7 Pro. I had to connect a Bluetooth keyboard and mouse, and then I was able to do a lot like I would on DeX, but they don't have the resolution. What is that called? Where the font size and pixel pitch is appropriate to the display size. So everything's just blown up really, really big. It's kind of hard to work on. But when I was editing video, it was perfect. It was like 1-to-1 off of what I would have seen from like a Huawei. With the Huawei desktop mode, it was perfect. It was great. And the performance didn't take a hit. So I would imagine the V50 will probably be getting more support as soon as we get Android 10 out and rolling to the other regional variants of the LG V50. What else do we have? From Matt Tyler. Juan, send me back the V50. I'm not having this. It turns out gaming apps are better on non-gaming phones. Oh, man. I'm so sorry. You can't play Doom on your ROG. But I don't believe that's overreacting. I think that's appropriately reacting. But folks, 2 hours. 2 hours. We made it through the hardware block. We made it through the fun tech news. We made it through the politics block. I did housekeeping in 10 minutes. This is the most successful podcast I've ever put together, and I still got a smile on my face. I can't thank you all enough for joining. This was such a fun show to put together, finally getting my scripts back in order and recovering from some holiday travel. My voice is about to fail on me because I also did 2 hours of talking yesterday. But you rock. You were along for the ride. You were along for the listen. I'm very earnest. I'm very serious. For those of you that have interest in such things and have experience with such things, after the show's over on social media, you can hit up my email if you go to SomeGadgetGuy.com. I would really appreciate some insight on those of you who have dabbled or tried other social media services. It is going to be an important mission for my channel in 2020 to start looking at other opportunities for building a community and for distributing content. 2019 was a big step. The podcast was doing really well on YouTube, but YouTube was, I had some philosophical issues with how they're treating content creators and how they're engaging in business. So it made sense to move to another platform, and Twitch has been a really good home for this podcast. I feel like some of those conversations need to continue evolving over the next year. If we have a problem with Facebook, it's not enough to just complain on Facebook. If there are issues with how Twitter does business, we should look at where we can take our business elsewhere. That came out clumsy. So those of you, send me some messages, drop me some thoughts. If there are some positive experiences you've had, if there are negative experiences that you've had, and hopefully over the next year, we can also look at where should a conversation live? If it's this type of interaction, maybe you should go to this social media service. If it's this type of response, then maybe you should go to this type of platform. And I feel like that should be healthier for the internet, spreading the wealth out a little bit and not treating these companies that have only been around for a couple years as these monolithic institutions. Facebook does not deserve to be a monolithic institution talked about in the same way that we talk about phone lines. It's not the internet, and it could be taken down, and it could be disrupted by another player in the space if we would let it. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, all of you who have been out there sharing, contributing, participating, and especially for those of you that are out there on the subreddit, reddit.com/r/glowingrectangles, promoting content from creators you feel deserve more attention is always a worthwhile cause, and it makes you feel good. Bill Murray, at the end of Scrooged, it makes you feel good, you'll do it, and you'll want to do it again, and you'll want to do it more. So, that's going to do it. We are out. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing, for participating, for subscribing, for gifting, for subbing, for all of the things on all the various platforms. And again, for those of you that have also posted a few reviews on the different podcasting services for the audio version of the podcast, you're a very special angel, and Santa is definitely looking out for you if that's the end of your holiday that you celebrate. If you celebrate a different end of your holiday, substitute with what you celebrate for the appropriate compensation for being a good person. Folks, of course, you can catch me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy here on the Twitch, on the Twitters, on the Facebooks, on the Instagrams. I want you all to have a fantastic week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I'll catch you back here next Monday morning for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Take care. Be well. I love y'all. I'll catch you back.